Hello, thanks for accessing these Inspired for Mission videos. In this video, we talk about a recent article entitled The True Cost of the Churchgoing Bust. In that, we have a rich discussion about what it is that we really have to offer the world as Christians. Not just a sense of community, but a sense of Christ-centered community. There's a lot of beautiful things shared in this conversation. We hope that it inspires you to think about what it is that your congregation has to offer those who live around it, and particularly in this time where so many people are experiencing that epidemic of loneliness and social isolation. So enjoy this conversation. Use it however it's most helpful at your congregation or for your own personal devotion, and we hope that it's a blessing to you as it was to those of us who participated in it. And let's start by praying. The Lord be with you. Lord, we thank you for this time together tonight as we take something from the contemporary culture, something that's been written, and simply ask what it is that you're stirring us to through this piece of writing. In this discussion tonight, we're seeking your guidance. We know that the grace and mercy and love that we have as a part of the church, the gifts that come from you are something that are for everybody. And so tonight, Lord, we ask that you inspire in us wisdom and discernment about how it is we can share those gifts with others. We thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Tonight, we are going to read through an article in the Atlantic that came out recently that talks about the cultural moment we are in and the decline of church attendance across the board, not just in our denomination, in all sorts of denominations, and not just in Christianity, across religious America. And then we're going to have a rich discussion about what that means for us, what the invitation in it is, and where God's leading us. Because we start this whole conversation with trust that God's Spirit is alive and well, even in these difficult and challenging times, that God has ways to bless others through the grace and mercy that we have in the church. Okay, so that's a rich article, right? There's a lot there to chew on. So what we're going to do is we're going to guide the rest of this time with some questions that have come from our Synod's mission team that we call the mission table. And a handful of them are going to offer their questions. And then again, if you'd like to participate in the chat, that's fine. If you'd like to unmute and offer your responses, that's fine too. Just be aware that if you unmute, then you'll be on the recording. So we're going to start actually with Dr. Rose, and she's going to offer us a couple questions for discussion.
So the author says there's a lot of things that America has discarded in organized religion. And my first question is, what do you feel we the people in the US have lost or are losing as we lose church or organized religion?
From my perspective, I heard the Surgeon General said that 1 out of 2 Americans are lonely. I think we've lost relationships. I see my church family every weekend, the 2 services I'm at, as my extended family. Even though my family's in Minnesota and I was with them this last weekend, I do more life together with my church family. And I can't imagine life without them. So I would say the relationships and the support and the encouragement and the touch.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else?
I would say the chance to get together with people who aren't the same as I am. And that's what I really appreciate. You know, first of all, I've got a very small family. And I'm lucky enough to be in an integrated congregation, which for the ELCA is extremely rare. But that is a sense of reality for me. I'm not in my own little cocoon. Everybody's experiences aren't the same as mine. There's there's reality that I can't get from looking at a computer or a phone, because there's a humanity to that reality.
Thank you, Jerry. Should we take one more response before we move on to the next question? Okay, anyone else want to answer that? What would we lose, or what would you miss the most if you didn't have church?
You know, I guess the only thing to add to what Tom and Jerry said is, without us being in church, I think we're losing hope. We're not hearing the message. We're not being in community with each other. We're not building those relationships, and it makes it easier for us to be hopeless. And that's why the mental illness has gone up so much over the past number of years, while church attendance has gone down. So you're not in the relationship, and you're not hearing God's word every week to reinforce that and help you during those times when you might be down.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I just would say that, some of the research on looking at happiness, and if you look at what the psychologists say about happiness, it correlates with what we read in the Bible about how to be happy and how to live a good life. It's about showing love, helping others, doing things for others. That's the primary thing that makes you happy, and church gives us an opportunity for that. So thank you, everybody, for your responses.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. I'll just share that one of the things that really caught me in the article is where it said that there's a statistical correlation between those who don't attend organized religion, and that those same people volunteer less, and that there is less civic engagement. And it reminded me of a speaker I heard many years ago who knew they were speaking to a bunch of religious leaders, and looked out at us and said, "You all preside over one of the last shared spaces in the culture." And what he talked about was what he called the skyboxification of America. It was obviously a word he made up, but he talked about how back before skyboxes were a thing at a ballpark, the benches at Wrigley Field were a place where you would have a blue collar worker sitting next to a white collar worker sitting next to an elected official, and then skyboxes became a thing. And so he used that term to talk about, the skyboxification of America, that we were spending less and less time in groups where we encountered difference as a blessing. That's always stuck with me. And he looked at these religious leaders and said, "You preside over a shared space in the culture." Good stuff. All right, Pastor Sarah, we're going to turn to you.
I was curious for folks, kind of thinking through your own context on your own calendar. If you were to think back just the past 2 to 3 months, kind of near term, for your church, what are some events or activities that stand out to you that you feel like have fostered a sense of community among members? So just kind of looking, in the near recent past, what stands out to you? Hey, we are kind of presiding over this communal space, or we are seeing community built. Where is that working?
For incarnation, just this last Tuesday, well, every month we have a justice team meeting for not only our members, but for the entire neighborhood. And some of the people in the Incarnation neighborhood have been there for 40 years. And we're becoming large enough, probably 35, 40 people from the neighborhood, where we're becoming an interest to the elected officials. So we're seen as, well, we've got a problem, therefore you've got a problem if you want to be elected again. We've found a person with the Department of Public Works who's a supervisor in the area, who's doing a phenomenal job of not only doing what he's quote supposed to do, but he's let out his own personal phone number to anybody who comes to that group. And things have been picked up. If there's a problem where somebody in his group has not done a good enough job, he'll go out there and do it himself, and it never happens again. We've just this last week, we had a person from the state agriculture board, which is strange for 15th and Keefe, because not much agriculture happens there, but it's also a case where where it's for consumer scams. He gave a explanation of what to look for and how to get around it, and a way to contact him if there's a problem. This this session only lasted about an hour, but especially for people of my age who are in a situation where they sometimes don't feel they have a voice. Like, and I'm lousy on names, so the person who just talked earlier was saying about hope, and that's it. Where suddenly there's hope here because somebody is listening. They're they are they've been a good part of society for the last 60 or 80 years, and now somebody's listening to them again. That is good. Um, our congregation is a part of the Micah group, and things are happening there where, well, for an example, the on the north side of Milwaukee, uh, the Children's Hospital just during the last year has pulled out a means of people getting their children taken care of that was close to a bus route and was good for their children. And oops, you didn't make enough money this year, so goodbye. Suddenly, we've got some doctors who are uh, who have always been following the Hippocratic Oath, but they're standing up to these corporate entities and remembering their Hippocratic Oath. So there again, it's those type of things that, well, and for me, it's something why I got involved in the church to begin with. I'm a member of Incarnation now. I was baptized there, I was confirmed there, and just like every good Lutheran, for about 5 or 7 years after I was confirmed, the only time I came is when I couldn't come up with a good enough excuse not to be there. But now I don't think I've missed in the last, well, except for COVID. Uh, uh, I don't think I missed more than 2 or 3 times a year. But it was because I was in the 60s, I saw the church as a means of hope where we had the idea of civil rights.
So something in the article impacted me. I'm teaching confirmation this fall, And I have competing values like content. I'm like, how much Bible can I get into kids that don't know Bible? Like how to open their Bibles to relationships. And it's a limited number of hours. I probably have 30 hours all told in the year, maybe 40. And after reading this article, I was, because I had this tension of content or connection, content connection. I know it's not an either or, but man, after I read it, I'm just like, I'm leaning into connection, so I was thinking of kind of those things too. So I appreciate what you shared, Jerry, because just the big picture, some of the big picture things that build community from that scope and connections with the community. And then I've been thinking about like internally choices that we make as leaders, and how to integrate addressing isolation and connection. So anyway, I was just like, I love the scale, but I've been like thinking, so this article impacted me and really thinking about that. And I think for me, worship's difficult because it tends to be looking one direction. It's people are more consumer based responding, and yet that's their main time in church. Not a lot of community gets built in that hour, even though we have a communal experience. And so I've been thinking about that too. What's like how to help create space for relationships, and how is that similar or different than having a communal experience? So anyway, so that's what the article kind of those are the things that caused me to think about. But it tipped me on the connection side after reading it. So we're gonna play lots of icebreakers.
I love it. Are there any other responses to Pastor Sarah's question about like consider congregation's calendar over the last couple of months? What events stand out to you as having successfully fostered community? Any other brief responses to that?
Well, besides our small groups and Bible studies that really go deep, we did something unique this time. We're really into the Chosen TV series about Jesus. And season 4 we had at the church, so we watched it in the fellowship hall. We got our popcorn machine working that we haven't used for years, and it really brought people together. And then the conversation, the discussion, that was a really awesome thing that kind of, again, our own theater, but we did life together. We brought our own cookies, and it really came together.
I'm Shirley from Ascension and Waukesha, and Ascension has a dual cultural congregation now. Lily White Waukesha is no longer just Lily White. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking people who, by their background, are Catholic, but we have a growing number of people. They do not have a separate congregation that worships at our church. They are full members, and we are trying to integrate more and more. And one of the things we've done, actually the last couple of years, but this year really was impactful. We make alfombras for Holy Week. Alfombras come out of Central America, where they paint the streets, and then on Good Friday, for part of the Passion, they walk through the streets and mess up their paintings as a sign of Jesus' suffering. We make them out of really designs that drawn on plywood, and then tinted sand and sawdust are made to make the designs. If you haven't seen them, take a look at Ascension's Facebook page. They're beautiful, beautiful things that are made. And for several years, though, people from the English-speaking service would come in and see them after we made them on Palm Sunday. But now the Sunday school and their parents come in on and make them alongside of the Spanish-speaking families. And it's just, it's a beautiful experience, because you see them, even if they can't speak the same language, standing side by side. One of my favorite pictures this year was somebody had taken a picture where they focused on the hands. So you see a little brown hand next to an older shriveled white hand, another generation working side by side. So we're really working hard to become truly a dual culture congregation, and not just in language, but enjoying each other's food and cultures. So, this is one, and we do the posadas and the during Advent. So those stand out for me. The one when we really feel connected.
Pastor Jamie, I'm going to turn this over to you for our next question.
Thank you. So the writer of this article points out several gifts of church participation, some of which we've named already, but he names improved quality of life, belonging and connection, participation in community rituals, and helping you find meaning in life. And so my question is, if somebody asked you to explain to them why church matters to you in just a couple of sentences, what would you say?
I'm good at unpolished answers. For me, having a church community where I count on seeing certain people, I count on having the community, I count on hearing the music and doing the liturgy, doing the ritual of it, that I have a place where I can feel grounded. I can feel kind of a beginning point. That's one aspect of why it's important to me. Another piece of it that my wife and I came to realize is that we also got involved with the corner house at UWM. So being there on Thursday night for a very different style of worship and with students, and getting with that community, connected with that community, it's peripheral to the university. So it's not really university. There's just a whiff of university, but these are students who are doing their thing and kind of touching their pulse of, it's a slow time, it's a exam time, it's a confused time, all these different seasons that they're going through. It really helped my wife and I to find a different connection and seeing Christ in those people, as well as the more traditional church that we have up the street. I think that means a lot to us.
Thank you, Tom. Becky, is that you raising your hand?
Yeah, when I think about what's important, can you just ask your question again? I want to make sure I'm addressing the right question.
Sure. If someone asked you why church matters to you in a couple sentences, what would you tell them?
So, church, oh gosh, so maybe I wasn't really addressing the right question, but like at its core, church matters to me because it provides a community where I feel I can bring my authentic self, where I feel a deep sense of belonging, not only because of the ritual and the relevance, but also because it provides a community where I feel like I can give something and I can be part of something that's important and frankly bigger than me. So whether that means I can do some service that affects my local community, like at a recent neighborhood yard and garden share that we had that was open to the public, or whether it's even just by giving financial resources to help a larger community, or by, there's so many different ways, but a community that provides a way for me to be involved in a way that's relevant and important to me. So that's how I would answer that question.
Thank you, Becky. Anyone else? Joe.
Jamie, I guess I would say that it's a place to go and get reconnected with your church family, with people that you love, and to get your spiritual tank refilled to send you out into the world for the next 167 hours before you make it back on that following Sunday. So it's important to have that, knowing that, as Becky just said, you're going somewhere where people care about you. It's a wonderful group of individuals. And you get, because sometimes we may not go in the best mood, and you get refilled up and you're out in the world to do God's work once again.
I think for me, my answer for right now is that we are all practicing following Jesus. And it's a place where we come together. Church is a place where we come together and practice that together. And I say practice because we do mess it up sometimes. Sometimes we mess it up in big ways, and the world isn't always a place that offers us grace. At our best, church is a place where we can practice and try and fail and learn and receive grace and love.
I love it. Thank you so much, Pastor Jamie. I'll give my answer to that question really briefly. Church is important to me because it is the place where there was a group of caring adults outside of my family, so that when I was growing up and there were hard things happening in the family, there was a safe place for me to be, where I was deeply loved, where I felt like I belonged, and now I want what I experienced and needed at times for others. I want that for them. And when I read the Surgeon General's report about the epidemic of loneliness and the physical effects of social isolation, increased mortality rates and increased, it just reminds me that we deeply need places of belonging. And here we sit with this beautiful open table where all are welcome. So that's why it's important to me. All right, we are going to end with some questions that get us turning our eyes toward where's the invitation in this. So that's what these next couple questions are meant to move us toward. It would be really easy, although I haven't heard any of that in the discussion tonight, but I think it is really easy to kind of wring our hands about the difficult state that church attendance is in. Although maybe it's encouraging for us to realize this is a larger societal trend. It is not just the ELCA. It is not just Christianity. It is not, goodness, the Boy Scouts are having a hard time finding enough volunteers to do things, right? I mean, this is a larger move toward higher social isolation. So here's the first question that I want to point us toward. People do still seek senses of community outside the church as well. So my first question for the group is, where do you see people seeking a sense of community or finding a sense of community outside of church? Spaces, activities, or maybe you can answer this not just for others, but for yourself. Where do you find a sense of community? What spaces or activities, where do you find that in your life outside of the church?
At the local golf course, Monday Night League, as well as Wednesday softball.
I know this is not for everybody, but I get to 2 AA meetings a week, and there's a lot of good community there.
I think travel sports teams, people find a lot of community in their through their kids sports than adults if they're on, if they're on teams. But I think that's a big place.
I was going to just share the same thing. I think that kids sports have become the other church. And we have whole families that stay away because kids sports are just dominant. And they refer to their baseball team as their baseball family. And they seriously mean it. It is where they connect. But unfortunately, they've sometimes chosen to never have their kids connect to church because they go from one sport to the next. So we see that because we have a lot of very young people, and unfortunately, we're not connecting always with their kids.
I guess I just have to see connection. It's funny, but driving past the beer garden, lots of connection going on at a place like that, or the festivals, the markets, the restaurants. I was surprised in that article it talked about people going out to eat less. I don't know, maybe in Kenosha people just eat more here, but there are more people going out to eat than you could imagine. But those areas are just booming with people that just can't get enough of it.
So, all right, my last question is going to move us really to the heart of of what evangelism is, and that is that we are good news people. So in a world of social isolation, we have good news of connection, love you don't have to earn, forgiveness, a place where you can actually mess up. There's been a lot of rich things shared tonight, and there's a lot of things in that article that can spur good questions in us. I do want to say that we are going to post along with the video for this the questions that we've asked tonight, and probably a couple others that we didn't get to, because I think some of these questions are examples of where the question itself can be the gift. So an example would be Pastor Sarah's question. Think about the things that you're doing at your church. Which of these are particularly successful in fostering a sense of community? What a great question for like your church council to wrestle with, right? And then let's take some of those. What are we learning from that? Are there ways that we can deepen that? Or the question I just asked you, where else are you finding people finding a sense of community? If you were to do that question with your evangelism team or your church council or some other leaders, then you just made a list of all the places the church could enter. Instead of expecting people to come to us, how can we build connections in those spaces where people are finding community? And that's what the whole Faithful Innovation or Adventures and Renewal stuff is about. How do we enter those spaces in a curious way? So that we can build relationships in the places where people are finding social connection. So here's where I want us to come down on, which is, as we listen to all of this, what is God inviting you or your church to consider through this conversation? Is God nudging something in you? Where's the invitation in this? So one more time, what might God be nudging you or your congregation to consider based on this conversation tonight?
I believe it is to be church in other places. We certainly have a place, a gathering place, and have a lot of things that draw people there and to do life together with others. But I think to do that in places where people gather and then to raise the questions and to create that sense of belonging and connectedness.
One thing too is I think in our evangelism, we've got to let people know that only sinners need apply. That they don't have to be good before they can join.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, that's beautiful too. Go ahead, Becky.
So this might be cheating a little bit because I've actually had these conversations with my pastor prior to this session, but where I'm being personally nudged to go, because I feel very strongly about inclusion and belonging. One of the things I'm being nudged to do is to help my congregation lean into and be more intentional about their RIC designation.
I don't want to see restaurants go away, like they mentioned in the articles. And that, when I see a parallel like that, that really brings it into stark relief for me. So, yeah, I appreciated that article.
Well, let me reiterate that we will post with this video the questions that we used tonight. And I would say from my role as one of the mission coaches in this synod, goodness, a couple of the questions we asked tonight would be so rich to take to the leadership at your congregation. Instead of just how do we get more people in here, ask questions like, where are people finding a sense of community? Or what things that we're already doing are either already really good at creating a sense of community or could be opened up to really create a sense of community. And if you want to think more about that one, I would refer you back to the conversation we had with Pastor Sarah about the book, How We Gather, which is a few months ago, but it's posted in the same place as all these videos on our Synod website. You can find that by looking at the Resources for Congregations page on the Synod website. So this being May, we typically do take June, July, and August off of these monthly conversations because so many people are traveling. So you will likely see some version of this again in the fall. We'll be thinking about what that looks like and what the topics are. But we'll be leaning on some of you who, there are a number of you who come frequently. And we might be leaning on you to say, help us get the word out about a night like this. This feels like, even in our own small way tonight, we've created a sense of community. And this feels very much to me like we are behaving like a synod, here to pray for and support each other as we have one mission to make sure that more people have that sense of love and forgiveness and mercy and grace that we don't have to earn.